So as we get started, you can continue to say hi or tell us where you're visiting us from. Oh, the UK, fantastic. And we'll go ahead and get started for today. So hello, everyone. My name is Jenna. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently sitting in front of a bookcase in my home apartment in Seattle, Washington. I'm also the operations and programs manager here at the Glass Art Society. And for those who might be joining us for the first time today, behind the scenes, we've been working really hard to expand our virtual programs and events to provide connection, learn from one another, and build community. Enter Glass Reflections. So every first Thursday, I'll go live to interview glass artists, businesses, educators, or other enthusiasts, and to speak about how they see glass as a vehicle for self-care and or what tools they might use to manage the stress of their careers. We'll spend the majority of the time hearing from our guests about their practice or their business, and then we'll end with a short activity. So, without further ado, I am beyond delighted to introduce our guest for today's Glass Reflections. And her name is Missy Graff Ballone. As an artist, movement, and wellness professional, Missy is also the founder of Wellness for Makers. Missy graduated with an MFA in metals from the State University of New York at New Paltz, is an RYT 500-hour alignment-based yoga teacher, and has been a licensed massage therapist since 2007. So welcome, Missy. So glad to have you here. Even in that short introduction, you've accomplished so much. So congratulations on all of those.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there anything else you would like to explain or add about your background or where you come from?
Sure. I mean, you named a lot of the credentials and things, and basically after graduate school, I was working at a craft center, Peters Valley School of Craft, and I was, leading a workshop and meeting with some other makers who were experiencing a lot of aches and pains in their hands, wrists, and forearms as a result of the studio practice. And having a unique background of both the world of making and wellness, I was saying that there are ways we can take care of our hands. And one of my peers was just very accepting of the fact that we were all going to end up with a repetitive strain injury, and we have to just suck it up and deal with it and move on. And it was in that moment that I was like, you know what, this is not okay. This idea of acceptance that we were all going to end up in pain, and that's just what's going to happen to our studio practice, was very alarming to me. So that's basically why I ended up creating what I created with Wellness for Makers. And throughout that time, in order to maintain your license as a massage therapist, you have to continue to learn and do continuing education credits. So in order to maintain that, I basically shifted gears into self-care. So any of the modalities and techniques that I continued to learn from there were techniques that I could then apply to teaching makers, things that were going to be accessible, that would make sense in learning in the studio.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And then where are you currently based?
I am in New York, so in the Hudson Valley. Yeah, it's beautiful near the Hudson River.
Lovely. So I would love to talk a little bit more about your business. Wellness for Makers is an internationally recognized business that teaches artists how to create a lasting studio practice, which I agree, you've already stated is very important. Could you maybe further explain the mission of this business and who you serve? Are there particular artists that you gear towards, or can you just expand on that?
Sure. So the word maker is very broad. So whoever identifies as a maker is welcome to learn from the resources that Wellness for Makers provides. Basically, my mission is to motivate and empower artists and craftsmen of all kinds through education, mindful living, and movement. So teaching artists how to move well, how to gain more kinesthetic awareness in the body, so that way they can create more lasting studio practices. I don't want you to have that idea that, oh, I'm just going to end up in pain. And if you are currently in pain, learning how to reduce that pain and how to create better studio habits that help you feel and find relief throughout your day rather than that aching pain and strain.
I love that phrase of mindful movement. I think that has a beautiful kind of rhythm to it. I'm also curious to hear a little bit more either in that mindful movement phrase or what more you might mean by a sustainable career studio practice. Is that a particular set of kind of habits maybe to think about, or what do those terms mean to you?
Sure. So the idea of creating a sustainable studio practice or a conscious studio practice or moving mindfully, to me, it's just about gaining more awareness, because if you are not conscious of your studio practice, you're not conscious of the way that you move throughout your space, and you end up in these awkward, vulnerable positions for long periods of time, you risk creating strain, pain, injury in the body. So by creating a more lasting, sustainable practice, right, which means learning how to create better work habits, learning how to be more aware of what's happening in the body, so that way you can move more, like intuitively. You're more aware. You're having a deeper understanding of your body. Because basically, if we just try to be as efficient as possible and we just try to make, we risk burnout. Right? And burnout is not sustainable. If you are running a production business as a glass artist, as any type of maker, right? And you're trying to just get all these orders in, or trying to get all of your pieces to this next gallery exhibition, whatever it is, a craft fair, you are working, trying to be as efficient as possible. And then, right? We ignore the pain. We ignore pain signals that our body sends us all the time. And we, really end up on this line between hustle and burnout. So in helping artists understand what's happening in the body, I feel like that helps them learn where they are on that line, right? Like, there's a fine line between the two. Like, am I working the hustle or am I in the burnout? So that's what it means to me.
Yeah, I totally hear that. I think it's really unfortunate, even whether you're a maker or you work in the arts or culture fields, that is definitely an increasing problem of just putting too much strain, whether it's physical, mental, or emotional, on the people that work in these fields. So I think that's really a great way to kind of combat that, is to take a step back and reflect and see what works best for you and how you can maybe alter your practice so that it can be sustainable.
Absolutely.
So one of your main services within Wellness for Makers are your workshops, which I've noticed you've offered to universities, nonprofits, corporations, so quite a wide variety. I would love to hear what maybe some of your favorite or most inspiring experiences with those have been.
Sure. I mean, there have been a lot. And I would say that my favorite, most inspiring experiences, not to pinpoint a specific place or anything like that, but are the experiences where I get to meet the same makers again. Like, they come back to a workshop again, and that's always the most exciting for me, because it's like, oh, I met you in Portland and now I'm seeing you in New Jersey, and because that shows me that they believe in what I'm teaching. That shows me that they are interested in learning more, and that they're aware that there is more to learn, that it's not just this one quick workshop and you learned it all. I feel like those are the most inspiring moments. There are definitely, I've traveled all over the country, and it's been really exciting to meet with makers of all kinds at different conferences and workshops and production studios, all types of things. It's been wonderful, but I'd say that those are always the most memorable moments for me. there have also been other types of engagements and things like New York City Jewelry Week puts on an incredible exhibition, exhibitions all over New York City. And the first year I had the honor of being in the main space, like the headquarters, and they let me put together an installation. And I wasn't there every day, but it was mostly information, but it was, I'm really proud of how I was able to put the information out there, set up a workbench. And then at certain times I was there meeting with artists firsthand, and these artists are from all over, and I got to talk to them and have them sit down and we got to talk about their practice. And obviously the bench wasn't set up for, every person's studio habits, but we were able to start a dialogue and start a conversation. So that was a really fun and unique experience.
That's lovely. Have you been to any glass conferences or to any universities that focus on glass as a medium?
I have not focused in on just glass. I have had glass artists, though, in my different workshops virtually, and also at some of the classes at some of the craft centers that focus in on multiple different disciplines. I have the opportunity to then meet a variety of makers and talk to them in that setting.
That's awesome. I also noticed, so in addition to the workshops that you offer, whether they're virtual or in person across the country, you also offer a variety of courses that are multi-week and immersive. One of them is from the ground up course, and then I've also seen you have a Hands of a Maker course. For those who might be interested, what might these courses offer participants, and in particular, glass artists who are interested?
Sure. So I have, like you said, a variety of courses. Hands of a Maker is a shorter course. It's really accessible, and it's about it would take you about a little over an hour to work through the content, but you can come back to it at your own pace. They're all pre-recorded short videos that are informational, that help you understand the common misalignments in the hands, wrists, and forearms, ways to stretch, strengthen, and massage the area. So that's a really great course for any type of maker, really. From the ground up, however, that is a 6-week immersion. So this is like where each week we're focusing on a different area of the body, starting with the feet and ankles, and learning all about the alignment and our movement patterns in the studio. And the students are asked to reflect upon their own studio practices, to answer questions that I then read each week. I offer feedback, and they can ask comments, and again, they can move through the content at their own pace, but there's this nice, kind of aspect where we can all come together in a virtual forum and things like that. The course virtual has been really great, and especially in this time, right? Like I've kind of had to pivot, right? I already had these courses in place, but I had to start kind of offering them more regularly and more often. And it's been wonderful because in a lot of ways, I've been able to reach more makers in different areas that I wouldn't have necessarily saw, right? Because if I'm going out to Portland for a ceramic conference, but there's all these jewelers that would have liked to see me, but I'm not there for them, right? They're not going to pay the conference fee to come see me, right? So it's been really nice to expand in this way, to offer more online courses, then also I'm launching a new membership, which I'm very much excited about, because this is going to be weekly movement breaks that are geared towards makers, and they're going to be shorter increments, but you get one every week, and then you can repeat that content throughout the week and try it out and see how it goes for you. You can ask me questions and I respond back, and it'll be a really fun way to also connect with a bigger community of makers. We'll have the private virtual forum and everything. So I'm trying to make the content more accessible, more affordable, and more consistent, because I think that you're going to get the most results the more consistent you are in learning more about your movement practice and learning more about your body. And I'm happy to cheer everyone on along the way. But I think having that consistency is where we're going to do the best. So that'll be launching at the end of the month.
I was just going to say, so when were you planning on launching it?
Yeah, New Year's, new year, new movement. Let's get into new studio practice, right? So, yeah.
That's great. So, especially with the pivot to virtual online offerings and expanding community and your reach, have you been noticing where some new areas where you've been able to build your community?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, let's see, the online community has been really nice. I think that the live workshops that I've done have been really fun. Like they're live and, yes, they're pre-recorded, but you really want to be there for the live experience. The pre-recorded ones are great because you can move at your own pace and everything. But I feel like the lives have been really nice. And what we've done is at the end of the live workshop, I did one on neck and shoulders. I did like neck and shoulder strength. I did one on hip strength. And then afterwards we get to talk, so during the workshop, I'm just kind of going and teaching because it's too complicated to go back and forth virtually in that way. Mm-hmm. So just to get the hour of movement out and all of that. And then afterwards we do questions, and that has been really powerful and fun and a nice way for other makers to connect, share, and ask questions. And some makers come back again and again, and they're not, they might not ask questions right there, but they're listening. They stay for the whole question and answer, even though they don't have to. You can leave at the question and answer, but some people really enjoy that. And that's where, we've gotten to dive into some things that are just really great questions that aren't necessarily offered in my other courses. So the question and answers have been a lot of fun for sure.
Awesome. Speaking of, if anyone in the audience has a question, you are more than welcome to type it in and we'll try to get to those at some point. I also would love to spend just a couple of minutes talking about your Wellness for Makers podcast, because that has been a great resource. I've definitely listened to a couple episodes there. And I also want to congratulate you because you launched it earlier this year. So you're almost coming up to a full year. And how do you think that has gone thus far?
Oh, I really love the podcast. It's one of my favorite aspects of Wellness for Makers right now, for many reasons. One is I get to meet so many incredible people, movement professionals, artists, all over, from all over that I wouldn't necessarily meet. And it's been an incredible experience. It's also been really rewarding and exciting to, reach out to people that I admire and have them say, yeah, let's do it. That's been really exciting because then it shows that other people believe in it as much as I do. It's just that reassuring thing, and it's very, very nice. I launched it, yes, at the end of February, and it's unbelievable that we are coming up on almost a year. That's actually insane when you say it out loud. I was like, it's December today. I couldn't believe it. So it's really exciting. I've gotten to talk to a lot of really cool makers, because it is the Wellness for Makers podcast is a place where we can expand the conversation, right? It doesn't have to just be movement based. That movement and massage and all of that, that's my specialty. But the podcast is a place where we can reach out to other people, we as in me, but I can reach out to other people and expand the conversation. And it's really exciting. So there are physical therapists that are also knitter, like a physical therapist that's also a knitter professionally, and an author. And then there, I've gotten to meet with installation artists and well-known artists that have had TED Talks and things, but then, they also have a background in, there we go, back. There are, the conversations have been really great and really wonderful. And then there have also been conversations with artists who have injured themselves severely, in the studio, you know, and how did they overcome those things? Like, how do you overcome losing your sense of smell? How do you overcome having your nervous system almost shut down from being exposed to too much particulate? How, you know, having these conversations, exploring them, helps other makers learn how to connect with their bodies, how to you know, get the help that they might need, or say, hey, yeah, that's not normal and I'm experiencing this. Maybe I should reach out to someone, you know. So even though I might not have all those answers, right, we can provide a stronger resource. It's also been nice to talk with nonprofits who reach out to artists who support, who offer grants, right? There, especially when this all hit, like I was reaching out to a lot of people that, you know, like the artist relief fund was on there. They were offering grants for any artists that had experienced hardship during COVID. Surf Plus, they were on my podcast early on. If anyone's not aware of Surf Plus, they are an incredible resource that I've done a lot of collaborations with in the past. But natural disasters, you know, that they are the ones to call if you lose your studio in natural disaster, you know, for you know, maybe mental health issues, things like that. They're there to support you. They also offer Get Ready grants, which are you know, like $500 grants that they offer to artists if you need to prepare your studio for safety. So you can also, they've also had some artists who have applied to take for the Get Ready grant to take one of my courses, which was really nice, because they're trying to prepare to not end up with a repetitive strain injury, right? So it's like you could also do that, and it's been an incredible experience to of meet with all of these different people.
I also had noticed one of the episodes I listened to was Corey joined you from Crafting the Future, which was great. Such a great conversation.
Crafting the Future, what an awesome, you know, what an incredible organization. And I'm so proud of our community, of the maker community, for helping them grow so much during this time, you know, like, whenever, you know, like, I can't believe how many makers I saw doing raffles and things for Crafting the Future, right? Like, it was incredible. I did host a movement workshop, and we donated that to Crafting the Future around the time of the episode launch, and that was really exciting and fun, and it was nice to connect with other makers who were in that same you know, that wanted to help that same organization. So
fantastic. Highly recommend everyone.
And Corey's a glass artist. So,
yeah, exactly. Full circle. So I also want to spend maybe a little time, you as an artist yourself, maybe you can describe one or two of the pieces that you've made to our audience. And I also noticed that you explain your work as exploring flexibility through the formats of jewelry, video, and painting, and would love to hear what your art practice looks like.
Sure. So my art practice has, you know, it really shifted a lot. And when I went to graduate school, I went as a metals major. So I'm trained as a metalsmith. But when I got there, you know, I really started to notice, you know, it was pointed out to me by a teacher or two, but I would talk about being a massage therapist, like, a lot. This is before Wellness for Makers created. But I would talk about being a massage therapist. There's a lot about how I kind of identified as not only a maker, but as a person. I'd be like, you know, I'm also a massage therapist. And they're like, well, why is this important to you? You know, I had a visiting critic come in and ask me to draw the body as a massage therapist, and like how I see the body as a massage therapist and how I see the body as a jeweler. And that exercise was incredibly helpful, and it started getting me thinking about the interior structures of the body, how I understand the body from a tactile experience, from that starting point way back when I started as a massage therapist, which I went to school for massage therapy to work my way through art school. I thought that was going to be a fallback plan, you know, and I thought that it was just going to be a way that I would work my way through school. And sure enough, life shifts, and the two worlds were able to combine, which is really nice. And so all of my work kind of and explorations became about interior structures of the body, connective tissue, muscle tissue, the way that our muscles move and feel. And I started exploring different materials, one of which is one of my favorites, but silicone rubber. And I was, able to cast the rubber into different links and different types of tissue-y like structures. And then that material is then made to be stretched and compressed and interacted with. And over the time after that, I've shifted into, kind of weaving or knitting different types of rubbers and things. Yeah. So that way, it kind of has more of a woven structure. I mean, if you look at the way that our muscles are bound together, our tissues are bound together, they're very intricate. So this was more interesting to me. But yeah, the jewelry is not necessarily jewelry you would imagine wearing every day. It's more meant to be interacted with, and this connection to the wearer and the viewer, where you can really interact and have a tactile experience.
I love that. I cannot wait.
And then the videos, yeah, so sorry, there are also the videos and things are just ways to, because I started off with photos, and then the photos only say so much. The videos are kind of more interesting because you can begin to see the way the tissues move with the tissues, they mimic tissues, but the way that they mimic it in relationship to harder structures like metal. I still use metal, but it's like a combination of the two where they have a conversation with each other. It's really interesting. Would love for you to check it out and talk to me about it.
Yeah, it looked amazing. I watched maybe one of the videos, and I particularly enjoy when artists have immersive experiences. So I cannot wait for when things start opening up and we could start visiting these art spaces once again and experience art, because I miss it so.
Absolutely. I miss, going to openings so much. It's a wonderful time to be able to reconnect with other artists. There have been so many nice galleries where you have this community you get to go to and see, what's new and who, what's new with everyone. It's a very nice thing. So I'm looking forward to that as well.
Yeah. So one last part of today, I would love to explore with you maybe a simple practice that would benefit glass artists. And I know you have a very active Instagram channel, which is really great. You give a lot of short little demonstrations on either wrist exercises or shoulder exercises. And I would love if you would maybe model one of those that you think would benefit glass artists.
Sure. There are a lot of things to share. And like you said, there are additional resources on the Wellness for Makers website and Instagram. I also have a free course for neck and shoulders, and I want to share that because I know that the neck and shoulders are an area where glass artists are going to feel some aches and pains for sure. So I talk in that mini course, it's a free mini course, but in that course I talk about strengthening the neck and shoulders, because there's a lot of things to consider when we think about our posture and we think about the way our alignment is in the studio. And one of the things that I like to teach is understanding where the muscles are being overstretched and where they are being compressed. So that way you can learn what areas of the body need massage and what areas of the body need strengthening, and then how to move with those areas. So I'm going to show a couple of things actually.
Right.
Cool. So I know that glass artists also, we have a lot of gripping, a lot of pinching that happens in holding the different tools. The wrists end up in compromise positions quite often. So I think that it's important to pay attention to the positions of your hands and wrists, and recognize, not to necessarily change anything, but to recognize what the most common position is, so that way you can counterbalance those movements by doing kind of the opposite. So if your wrist, for example, is always in extension, like if you notice that you're holding a tool that forces your wrist to be bent in extension, you're going to want to just roll your fingers in and pull your wrist back. So that way you're going to stretch the opposite area, right? You don't want to necessarily stretch this area, because this area is already overstretched. This area is being compressed, which is putting your nerve in a vulnerable state. So counterbalancing that action by just pulling the wrist back is going to feel really good. Another thing is if you find yourself in a pinching type position, you're going to want to counterbalance the pinching by expanding. And that, doing this, sure, we can do this, but you can also create some resistance. And you create resistance with, there are different types of hand stretchers. There's a thing called the cat's paw, there's therapy putty. I personally like a little finger stretcher. It's a little rubber tool that you can put onto the fingertips. You just put it on the base of your finger pads, and then from here you can just expand out. This one's in a little bit here. You can just expand out. You might notice that, wow, that feels like a lot of sensation. And that's okay. You don't have to do a lot of reps. We're not in it to just like power through. I'm all about listening to the body, right? If you can do 5, that's great. You stop there. And that's going to build strength in this whole area of the forearm, wrist and forearm. So it's not just about strengthening the fingers. You will strengthen the fingers, but you also strengthen the hand, wrist, and forearm. So that is a really great tool to check out, and all of that. For massaging out the area, there's a wrist roller. It's like a mini foam roller. So if you're familiar with foam rolling, this is a really great tool to have. I'm just going to show it on my wall. So if you, but you can massage out the forearm. So, if you're holding something, a heavy tool, the nice thing about like glass blowing artists, right? If you're a glass blower, your studio is set up in a nice way where you can move around the space a lot, which is really great. But there are these heavier tools that you're holding, you're moving your wrists in these very specific ways, you're gripping tools, and heavier tools, in fact. So it is important to definitely roll out and move these areas. And then also when you're rolling, you can do this on a table or even on your thigh. But as you're moving through the massage, if there's a specific area that, feels a little tender, like it has little knots, you can work that area a little extra and it feels really fantastic. So I definitely recommend this. It's not too hard on the connective tissue. It's a softer foam roller. So it's really nice. I would also recommend for the shoulders a couple things. Since I want to kind of give you a range of options here, but for the shoulders, I'm trying to I was watching a lot of different makers, and it's like, there's the rounding in that happens a lot. And I talk about this a lot in my neck and shoulders class, but I want to encourage you to bring more awareness to your shoulder joints. I did a post on this recently, but just like extending your arm out, this might be hard to see because you can't see all my arms, but so I'm going to turn one arm up, and at the same time, the other arm goes the opposite direction. So it's like a corkscrew. I'm trying to move through the screen, but it's rotating in opposite directions, just slowly rotating the shoulder joint. So that way you're bringing more awareness to this area. You can even just lower them down back to neutral and then do shoulder rolls. So bringing the shoulders up towards the ears, back towards the spine, and then lowering them down. Up towards the ears, back towards the spine, lowering them down. I'm just going to do one more in case anyone's doing it with us. Up towards the ears, back towards the spine, and lower them down. Even just 3 times, right, of doing that, you start to feel warmth behind the shoulder blades. You start to feel that. And that warmth is blood flow and circulation moving through your back, right? That's going to help create space in the connective tissue. So that way, when you start to feel like, oh man, I have all these knots in my neck and my shoulders, right? Just even doing that, just bringing awareness to that space is going to help in the long run. So I definitely love a good shoulder roll throughout the day. Yeah. So what are some specifics that you might be thinking of that I can then offer a tip back?
Yeah, well, what you just gave, I think, is super helpful, especially for the holding up. If you're a glass blower, like those can be really heavy because glass gets really heavy. So that tip was really fantastic. I also, in just practicing the arm movement one, it was kind of funny to me. The first couple of rounds, my brain was like, wait, if one hand is this way, then
one hand
other
up, one hand's down. Yeah.
So it was kind of both like a mental and a physical exercise, which was really nice. I would love to hear, I myself am not a glass maker. So if anyone in the audience has a specific question for something that they might be feeling, would love to hear. You can just type a quick question. And I'd be so curious to see what.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious too. I'm thinking of other tips, that, I mean, there are plenty, but one thing that I do also like is a yoga block, and you could use a book or any other tool, but the blocks are really nice and a nice way to incorporate another device, another tool into your practice. But basically, if you're a glass artist, you're holding these heavier tools down in this, what about the setting position? Are you saying sitting position? The seated position? Or is there a specific? Okay, I'll get back to that if it's seated. Sitting. Thank you. Okay, I will refer back to that in a moment. But even with sitting, okay, if you're sitting or standing and you notice that your shoulders are caving in a lot, right? We want to bring awareness back to that space so the shoulder rolls are good. But if you want to strengthen the area, a nice thing to do is with a yoga block or a book that's around the same size, right? You're going to extend the block out. Man, I wish I could move you back a little more. Hold on. Let me get back here, right? You're going to extend it out, and then I'm pulling my shoulders back towards the spine, hugging into the block, and then I'm just going to lift the block up over my head. Now, a lot of you, the tendency is going to be to just go like this, right? And we all can do that probably. But when it comes to actually engaging and creating strength in towards the block, and then you go to lift, some of you might only be here. And that's okay, right? You're sending signals, micro signals to the shoulder joint saying, hey, I want access to this movement. It's hard to build movement there because, when we don't lift our hands up over our heads, when we don't hug in and activate those muscles, what ends up happening is, our bodies think that we no longer need access to that movement. So our connective tissue will physically lay down more connective tissue to the area, and then it gets harder and harder and harder to lift that arm up over our head. It's not that we're getting older and we're broken and all these things and our bodies are the worst, right? It's that we're not moving enough. So incorporating more movement is going to help you get there. I'm not saying force yourself into a position, right, that you're not ready for. That's not it. Micro movements can help you build so much more strength, so much more flexibility in the long run. So definitely look out for more of those. I post a lot of small little micro movements that you can do and access in your studio.
Yeah, most definitely check those out. I also really appreciate the shoulders one. Even if you're just sitting in front of your computer all the time and, you can find yourself kind of leaning in and forward, I think bringing that awareness to how your body's acting in front of a screen could also be really helpful.
Yes, absolutely. Should we use a chair with a back boulder? Okay, so I have more. Okay, so there's an episode on the Wellness for Makers podcast. It's called "Which Chair Should I Use?" with Pac Matthews, and so founder of Soul Seat. But we talk a lot about chairs and about building strength. We talk specifically also about his chair. He did a TED Talk called "Sitting is the New Smoking," and so it was really an awesome conversation to have. But we talk a lot about variety and what chair to use. You don't necessarily have to use that chair, is also the point of the podcast. But what I do recommend is I don't use a chair with the back. I don't use the back on my chair because I'm encouraging my muscles to the party. I want them to build strength. I want to be able to hold myself upright on my own, right? If there's a back on my chair, if there's all these padding and ergonomic, like boulders and things, right? I'm just going to relax into it and my muscles aren't going to do anything. I'm just going to, my muscles are going to be in a relaxed position. So then it's going to be harder and harder and harder to learn to hold myself upright when I don't have access to a back on a chair, Yeah. So definitely try it out. Even if you have a chair like that, spend some time sitting more forward, coming more forward. So that way you don't, even if it's a few minutes a day, that you're not relying on the back of your chair, right? And you're just focusing in on trying to maintain a more neutral posture.
That's definitely one I will practice, the sitting in front of the chair. And it's so simple, just something that you can easily.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I just took a look at the clock, and I definitely want to value your time. So thank you, everyone, for your comments and questions. Also, Missy, for sharing your story with us. I really look forward to seeing more of your courses and workshops. For those interested in the podcast, for listening to either the chair episode or Crafting the Future or any other special guest, you can find episodes on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and Stitcher. And for this program specifically, it will be uploaded to the GAS platforms probably within a couple of days or so. And we'll also include Missy's information, her website, should you be interested in continuing this conversation anymore. So thank you all for joining us in the audience, and I look forward to seeing you all next month.
Yeah, thank you all so much for being here, and feel free to reach out with any questions, and we can continue it on Instagram or over at info@wellnessformakers. Just email me. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Jenna.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.